Hey,
Great.
go ahead.
Right. Welcome to the Southline Community Schools Board of Education virtual special board meeting on May 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Mr. Abate, can you please call the roll?
Sure, Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
Henshaw.
Yes, here.
I am here. Mr. Dashner.
I am here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Schwegler.
Here.
And Mr. Tell.
Here.
We are all here. That is a quorum. With that, we will go to item number 3, which is public comments. I currently do not have any public comment. There will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting, so feel free to submit your public comment during the meeting. And with that, we will move to our finalist interviews. And our first interview is Mr. Archibald.
Okay, just texted Mr. Archibald and let him know that you're ready.
Yep. Give him a second to log on. Hello, Mr. Archibald is on. He is muted. You are muted.
Hey, I've only done 100 of these over the last several weeks. I haven't managed to look at the camera correctly or manage the mute button. But
all right. So everyone is here. Good evening. On behalf of the Board of Education of Southline Community Schools, I would like to welcome Stephen Archibald back for his second round interview. Mr. Archibald is currently Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and District Services for Livonia Public Schools in Livonia, Michigan. I will take just a moment to describe our format. The interview may take up to 60 minutes. There will be 14 questions. Toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you an opportunity to ask questions of the board and make closing remarks. Although the task of choosing our next superintendent is the responsibility of the board as elected representatives of our school district community, we value the perspectives of our stakeholders. We welcome those watching this proceeding to electronically submit any constructive feedback you may wish to share in regard to Mr. Archibald's candidacy. These comments will be viewed and considered by all members of the board. And with that, I will offer up the first question. Mr. Archibald, since deciding to become a candidate and participating in first round interviews, what have you observed and or learned about our district that has impressed you most favorably?
yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. When I first, and actually this journey started for me back probably in late October. When I first saw that the vacancy position would be available due to Mrs. Baker's retirement, I started to think about it, and what I was impressed with, or what I knew at the time, was simply the reputation of the district and the opportunity for me as a resident in the community to serve the school community in which I live. And that's where I started. And since late October through today, I have been, if you track your traffic on your website, I probably match any 100 people in the number of times that I have been to your site and read information about the district, talk with neighbors, talk with friends and colleagues who are familiar with the district. And I've been following each of your schools on Twitter. And again, so to say that I can really narrow down to just a few things is very difficult, because throughout that time, everything I've learned about the district has just made me more and more impressed. If I had to highlight some things, I could go to things that stood out to me when throughout the process. One was what jumped off the page in the information in the posting was no outsourcing. You talked about the support staff living in the community. And that really stuck with me, because I know from my own personal experience in Livonia, you can outsource the service. What you cannot outsource is the pride, the dedication, the loyalty, and the commitment that those support staff will bring into our district and servicing our kids every single day. So that really stood out to me. I look at the financial stability, and it's not just in recent, it's historically, the financial stability of the district and the focus on maximizing its resources. That is extremely critical, and never more so than perhaps what's on our horizon this coming fall. And to be in the starting position that you are in is a much better situation than a lot of districts are in. Maximizing the resources, a quick, our work on that, when we started our bond work in Livonia, we were 3 years into that project and realized that we had lost 1,000 students over that period. We were working to spend millions of dollars in schools, to be quite honest, that we weren't sure that we still needed. And so before spending the community's dollars, we commissioned with a company to do a long-term enrollment study and a long-term building utilization study. I chaired that committee that led a 42 member group to review those studies, to analyze them, and to bring back to the Board of Education a plan. And we brought back 4 proposals considering those items. We knew that we weren't going to close a high school, a middle school, or one of our 5, 6 buildings, because there was no way you were going to move 3 into 2. But we looked at all our buildings that were yet to be, the other buildings that were yet to be renovated, and we went through a very systematic process. And through that, and taking a lot of community input, and ultimately the decision was to repurpose 2 of our buildings. And again, we took a tremendous amount of input from our community in how to make those decisions, and more importantly, on implementing them. But again, that was a very fiscally responsible approach at that time, and I am impressed with your efforts along fiscal responsibility in South Lyon. And I think lastly, while you are a very high-performing district, as evident by many measures, it is also very impressive that you are focused on developing the whole child, evident in your strategic plan and the social emotional learning initiatives that you've got going on, but that you have also a focus on culture. And that's another area that I've done a great deal of work on in Livonia with respect to our climate and culture work. It's been very important to where we are as a school community. And I won't go into a great deal of detail on that with you right now, but I will tell you that involvement was probably the most significant endeavor in my entire 30-year career, because we involved every single employee group in that initiative and moving forward. We were in a stall pattern on one of our district school improvement initiatives on students feeling emotionally safe at school, despite action plans across all of our schools to bring about improvement. And when we were puzzled by that and looking at it as a district school improvement team and steering committee, we decided to have focus groups, and we started with our students. And that's where we should have been all along, because it was the feedback that we got from our students about what it means to feel emotionally safe at school and what we should be focusing on to help them is what led that entire initiative that has now been in place for well over 4 years and had a significant impact on staff and students throughout our community. So again, I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to express to you why those things have stood out and meant so much to me, and the things that you have in place in South Lyon.
Thank you.
This is Eric Kennedy. Steve, I'll have your next question. We're a large district that encompasses 83 square miles and includes 12 schools. How will you be highly visible and maintain consistent interaction with all members of the school community, especially with our students and staff members?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I first entertained the idea of trying to jog the perimeter of the district, and then later switched that to trying my best to drive the perimeter of the district, and certainly servicing 8 municipalities. Visibility is, first and foremost, I live in the community. It's where I shop. It's where I go to restaurants when we can again, and where I play golf. It is where I live, and I know as the superintendent, I am the face of the district and thankfully, at least not literally, but figuratively. And so you never take the superintendent hat off. And so your actions out in the community are always representative of the district. And I'll always keep that in mind and value that responsibility. As getting active in the community, besides just my normal everyday life and where I live and all those things I said, it's going to be getting involved with community groups throughout the community, and not just centrally located to South Line of this, but throughout our community. Because again, being 8 municipalities, it's important that I'm not just seen, around the schools, but again throughout the community that we serve and in the larger scope. So I'll be joining, some community groups and participating in community activities. In terms of schools, I'll be in schools and at school events on a very regular basis. I never want my presence to be of any concern to anyone's. I want it to be a very natural observation. To see me walk in the front door of a school, it should be comforting, should be reassuring. It's an opportunity for me to engage with students and staff and to really see the excellent things that are going on in the school. And I want everyone to be very, very comfortable with that. Currently, in our position, our cabinet, we log our visits to buildings. And we put in the building we went to and the reasons we went there, whether we're going to visit a classroom, we're going to follow up on a specific issue, or we were going to a school event. We periodically then bring that up and we look at it to make sure that we are getting out to all of our schools in not just going to certain ones, but that we're getting to all of them, that we're getting in classrooms, and that we're going to schools for a variety of reasons. So we actually monitor that and track it to make sure that it's happening. It's not happenstance. Our schedules are extremely busy. And if we don't make a very concentrated effort to get out in the community and to get out in the school, then it tends to get replaced with other things. And I think with perhaps Ms. Weimer's help and some good calendaring, I'll be able to make sure that I'm out quite a bit, which would be my intent.
Thank you. Mr. Abate is the next one.
Good evening, Steve. I have your next question. If you would please describe a successful innovation or significant improvement that you are especially proud of implementing as your time as an administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Abate. The one that comes to mind is our Graduation Alliance dropout recovery program. In Livonia, we do not have an alternative school. We noticed we lose students in their senior year. They don't complete for a variety of reasons and oftentimes life circumstances. And so, a couple of years ago, we got hooked up with Graduation Alliance, and we brought in this program that was it works out to be no cost to the district because of a special fund available through the state aid. But we worked with Graduation Alliance to establish this program. I brought together a team of schedulers from our high schools, pupil accounting, our finance office, our counselors, and brought in the people from Graduation Alliance to explain the program. We put its parameters in work, built our course catalog, and then we went out and provided lists, and we sought individuals who had not graduated from high school for whatever reason. We looked to re-engage them, get them into this program, and get them to their high school diploma. My initial thought, I as a secondary director, implemented and ran this program. I didn't want to put more on our high school counselors and our high school staff at the time, but I knew that this was an important need. My thinking was I would do it long enough to keep it running, and then we would phase it into the high schools. And selfishly, I enjoyed it too much to give it up. When students contacted us, or we were contacted for a student looking to get into that program, I would contact the counselor, I would pull up the student's files, and I would have conversation about where that student left off, what they were involved in, and what were some of the things that might have interfered with their success in school. I then invited the student, and keeping in mind, I wanted to have a personal touch, because for whatever reasons, they had been disconnected with school and hadn't had a very positive experience. So although it was an online program, I wanted to have a very personal element and be a part of that. And so I would invite the student and whoever would come from their family. Sometimes it was just them. Sometimes it was a grandmother, an aunt, a girlfriend, whoever. But we talked about what has motivated them. We talked about what some of the interferences were in their success and how we were going to get there. I'd give them my cell number, I'd give them my card, and I would say, look, anytime throughout this process you're having issues getting anything done, you can contact me. I'll get in touch with the people in Graduation Alliance, and I want to keep you engaged. And I was very proud when I left. We had a dozen and a half or two in just a couple years, students who would not otherwise have earned their diploma without that. So I would say has been our work in Graduation Alliance. I apologize for the long answer. I was passionate about that one.
I've got your next question. Our district spans 3 counties and includes 8 municipalities with multiple police and fire departments. How would you go about establishing relationships and strengthening partnerships between the schools and our numerous local businesses, organizations, services, and jurisdictions?
Yeah, that is definitely, I'm sure, a logistical challenge, but a very important one. You mentioned, fire and police and our safety. I've been involved in LPS with developing our emergency operation plan along with our administrator of public safety. And in there, in obviously really stressing the importance of the coordination of efforts in emergency response and a tragic event that might happen to our school. And so certainly establishing those relationships, getting to know those people, it may be a little bit more challenging because of the different number of municipalities, but it is very important that I maintain very direct and known contact with those key individuals. Currently, the chief police of Livonia, we have one another's cell phones, and there is no workday. If there's something that we need to communicate with each other on, whether it's something that's going on in the city that the school district needs to know about, or something that is impacting us that they need to know about, and vice versa. So I would work very hard to maintain those contacts with our emergency services. And again, in terms of our businesses and community, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I would look to be involved and connected with those individuals and building relationships. You'll see it in my 90-day plan. I talk about doing just that. And setting up meetings. Again, these are very deliberate things. These aren't things that are going to happen by chance, but it's me reaching out to them, establishing that relationship, and together looking for opportunities that we can partner with, that would be mutually beneficial to our community and to our students and to our school district. That could be a number of things, whether it's financial support, volunteerism, internships. There's a whole host of things, as you've probably seen, as we have the way the community has responded during what we're going through currently. We have a very, very giving and generous community, and we will look to capitalize on that.
This is Randy Clark with your next question. Competition to public schools in the form of schools of choice, charter, private schools, and online programs is increasing. How, in your opinion, can we remain a district of choice in this competitive marketplace?
This may be one of the most challenging areas and changes that we've faced in education potentially throughout my career. It used to be, as a public school, the folks who lived in your community came to your schools, or they went to a parochial school, and that was really their only choices. And for various reasons, we pretty much had a select population. That's changed for all the reasons that you mentioned. But what I'm going to offer you isn't an opinion. It's my actual experience. We, parents and kids, shop our schools. They come into schools. I've been on a phone call before with a parent asking me, as the principal of Stevenson High School, about AP scores and programming. And I kid you not, her child was in kindergarten. So they're shopping. They're looking to see how we stack up against the competition. What we will do to be competitive, and much of it will come in the bond, we need to make sure that our facilities are state of the art and well maintained. We need to make sure that our programs are comparable or better than the folks around us, where people are going to choose, and whether this is in the classroom, outside the classroom, athletics, activities, the arts, CTE, you name it. People are making very targeted decisions on where they want to send their kids to school based on the type of education and type of experience that they're looking for. So we need to make sure from a programmatic standpoint that we are competitive. What we have done in Livonia as both the principal and as a secondary director, our parochial schools, there was a lot of competition there. We started opening or sponsoring an open house in the fall. Parochial students, as you know, make their decisions much earlier on where they're going to go to high school, and oftentimes before the first of the year. So we would host an open house, and with that, we would hold shadow days, provide the opportunity for students to come in. We knew, as should you, if we can get them to experience what we have to offer and open their eyes, they will be more likely to come. And so we had to welcome them in, bring them in, and help them experience all the greatness that we have to offer. That helped us, some students, make that decision not to move on to a particular parochial school, but to come to our school. We write letters. We provide busing to all the parochial families. We write all our 8th grade parents. We provide information about our school programs. We provide a card for them to return back to us via mail and ask us any additional programs or anything that they want information on. Do they want a tour? Do they want a phone call? What type of follow-up would they like? And then we have the appropriate staff member, administrator follow up with them. Again, it's a personal touch, but it's welcoming them into our community. Our homeschool community in Livonia, we have a very large homeschool community. As you may know, those students can come in and take non-essential classes. We put together information, set up meetings with the homeschool groups, and met with them personally and marketed our schools to them. And again, our goal was, we need to find you so that you can experience us, and we need to put ourselves in the competition, and that comes by highlighting our strengths.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Archibald. I have your next question. What basic philosophies do you have regarding collective bargaining, and what do you believe the role of the superintendent should be in the process?
Thank you. My very simple philosophy, and I'm not formally trained in bargaining, so I try to come at it from a very practical standpoint. It's a very collaborative process. I'm really not too big on gamesmanship, where you come in way up here and we start down here, and over a series of weeks and months, we'll eventually get to a spot. We've got to come in respecting one another. We've got to understand, I don't even like the term other side of the table. We're all at the same table in the same district with the same goals in mind. Again, that philosophy is a collaborative spirit. I want to work to understand the association's position, what's important to them and why, what are they trying to achieve, just as much as I want them to understand what's important to the district and what we're trying to achieve. In a lot of cases, when we have that communication, we can find a lot of similarities and a lot of good places to start with conversation and build progress and build momentum through the bargaining process. It is a very exciting and very interesting process, and one I enjoy a great deal. When I started over, and I think in the last interview, I talked with you about coming in a relatively abrupt circumstance and bargaining with some groups. I was very familiar with the administrator's contract, and I was very familiar with the teacher's contract because of the work I had done. I was not so familiar with our custodial contract or our building supervisor contract. And so in very quick fashion, I took an opportunity to read through some of those. But the very first time we came to the table, we weren't presenting a budget overview. We weren't talking about health insurance. Those particular groups had made some very significant changes. They took a 10% pay cut through some of our toughest times. And so I just simply asked them, I haven't been involved in this process with you over time. What do I need to understand about what you've been through, about how you're feeling, and about what you're trying to get done? And that conversation was immensely helpful to us reaching settlement in very quick fashion in a very respectful manner. In terms of the role of the superintendent, in my current position, I meet regularly with the superintendent and establish our priorities. Some of the items we take into bargaining are simply cleanup items, but then we also have our list of priorities and what our desired outcomes are and our parameters. We will meet with the Board of Education regarding each bargaining group and again, sharing what our priorities are and again, those parameters and getting further direction from the board. The superintendent and I would meet regularly on strategy. She wasn't, Ms. Silquist wasn't in the bargaining room with us, oftentimes in her office, very anxiously waiting for us to get back downstairs and to fill her in on what parts of the movie she missed. We'd usually come back, start talking, and we'd be well into the movie, and she'd just sit there looking at us like, stop, you need to start back at the beginning, bring me up to speed. But ultimately, it's the superintendent who is going to give the final okay on whatever we're agreeing to, because it's the superintendent who's got to take that to the Board of Education now and get their support and approval. I am aware that it's been a past practice in South Lyon for the superintendent to sit at the table in many cases. I will tell you that while that isn't something that is often highly recommended, I realize that it is the practice. I am certainly not opposed to that, but what I would want to do in talking with the association and talking with the chief negotiator, our board, and our administration is to make sure, and this may sound odd, but that I understand my role in that process and being at the table as superintendent, because I would only want my presence at the table to be a value add and not detract from the process.
Great, thank you. There is serious speculation that Michigan school districts could be facing a foundation allowance reduction of $250 to $650 for the coming school year. What approach would you take to decision making in order to account for this extreme financial challenge?
Yeah, we have. There's a lot of. You're right. There is a lot of speculation out there right now, none of which, unfortunately, is good. Hopefully, we'll learn something coming up in the revenue estimating conference here in the middle of the month. Ideally, what we need to do, and for all intents and purposes, and anything that I'm hearing, and I suspect you're hearing the same thing, we aren't going to know that number prior to the board having to accept or approve a budget on July 1. That's a challenging position to be in. But if you remember back to previous administration several years back, it was not unusual for us to find out what our state aid would be in sometime in October and November. So again, we may not know exactly. What we need to do is put together multiple scenarios with varying cuts in foundation allowance, as well as a pupil enrollment. I know that right now you've set in the budget projection at zero pupil increase, where you've been increasing at roughly 1% or slightly above 1% for the past couple of years. But back to the budget side of this question, we need to put together multiple scenarios, and starting with, in terms of what we're budgeting for, what our priorities are as a district. And as I indicated, I think in my previous interview, starting with those things that have the most direct impact on teaching and learning, and working out from there. But our budget process has to be, and this one will be a challenging one. There's no doubt about it. But I believe, thankfully, because of the current financial position of the district, I don't think we need to panic, but it is certainly appropriate to have uh, the right level of concern, and that we need to plan for multiple scenarios, focusing on our priorities and those with respect to teaching and learning.
Thank you. Next question is, how do we ensure that all students, whatever path they may choose, are solidly prepared for success following their graduation from high school?
That's perhaps one of the most remarkable things about a comprehensive high school, in that the many talents and interests that our students come with and develop during the time that they're with us. Um, Ideally, I focus and would want to focus on, as opposed to having our students specialize, but just that our students are getting a very comprehensive, broad-based education. The workforce that our students are going out into today is far more technical and far more information rich than certainly anything I came out into, and possibly many of you as well. We know that our students, in all likelihood, will change jobs a good number of times. And so, to me, what our graduates, the outcomes that they need to leave with, are a core set of skills that will help them be successful in a number of environments. To me, that means the ability to analyze and information and data, the ability to think critically, problem-solving skills without question, the ability to communicate effectively, both orally and in writing, the ability to use technology, as well as to work well independently and collaboratively. None of those skills are profession or career specific, but they are universally applicable. My students, as you teach geometry, and if you enjoyed solving proofs, you were one of the few. But my students would ask, Mr. Archibald, am I ever going to use this again? And my honest answer to them would be, no, in all likelihood not. And they'd pack up their books and they're ready to go. And then all of a sudden say, but wait a second. You may never solve another proof again outside this room, but you will be solving problems your entire life. You will be solving problems in which it's important to know the rules in which you're operating under, the information you know and the information you don't know, and how to put it all together in a solid thought pattern to get to the desired outcome. So while you may never solve a proof, what I'm working on is teaching you how to process and how to think. That you will do. So again, those are some universal skills that I think our students should leave with.
I have your next question, Mr. Archibald, and we have about 29 minutes left, so we're good on time so far. This is kind of a lengthier question, so I'll try to go slow. How do we as a public school district prepare for an uncertain future in the midst of an ongoing pandemic? What contingencies would you put in place to make sure that we are as well prepared as possible to provide our students with a high quality educational experience, no matter what challenges may confront us?
I think I got it, but if you wouldn't mind repeating it, Mr. Kennedy, I would appreciate that. I was trying to take notes, and apparently I'm slower than I anticipated.
No problem. How do we as a public school district prepare for an uncertain future in the midst of an ongoing pandemic? What contingencies would you put in place to make sure we're well prepared as possible to provide our students with a high quality educational experience, no matter what challenges may confront us?
Yeah, that's literally where we're all at right now, isn't it? Every district across the state of Michigan is squarely in that position. I think as a district, again, what we need to do And not to be flippant, but honestly, if I had the complete answer for that question, we could probably make a great deal of money because those are answers that a lot of people are looking for and working on right now. But I think ideally, we need to take what we do know. We need to make some logical assumptions based on the financial climate, based on what we're going through right now with social distancing. And we need to start putting together multiple scenarios. My suggestion and what we're starting to work on where I am is to create a task force of stakeholders. If you've given any thought to this at all, you don't have to get too very far into us getting back to normal without your eyes starting to cross and your brain starting to hurt, because there are a lot of complexities to what we are facing, and especially with so many unknowns. But I think we need to work again with multiple scenarios based on what we do know and based on what are logical, sensible assumptions. We need to work on it collectively. We need to work with our district partners in other districts and throughout the state. This is a challenge for all of us right now, and a perfect time for everyone to pull together. We do not need to recreate or reinvent the wheel in South Lyon. We can work together with others to make sure that we are as best prepared. And I think in terms of a contingency, it's not relying on one single plan, but that along that way of that plan, we've got a fallback in case something unforeseen, that's almost comical given the current circumstance, but something unforeseen were to happen. And again, it is really, it's a very exciting time to be in education. I think there's a lot to be excited about in our rebirth when we come out on the other side of this. And that's the approach that I would look to take. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abate, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. All right, Mr. Archibald, why did you choose education and then educational leadership as a profession? And as a follow-up to that, what has been the most frustrating and the most gratifying about your experience?
This takes me back a little bit. In choosing education, I initially went to Central to be an athletic trainer. That was my interest in what I wanted to do. And I realized that relatively early on that my vision was to be an athletic trainer at a professional sports team. I wanted the big banana. I wanted the big hoopla. When I realized that there aren't many of those jobs and probably takes a little bit more to get there, I moved away from that idea. And what I settled with, or what always stuck with me in conversations with some of my former teachers, is I just always enjoyed the school environment, the learning environment, and it seemed to be, well, I may not be the most talented or smart individual around. I seem to always find myself in a leadership position of some kind. And so I made the decision in my sophomore year to move into education, and that's what I did. The idea to go into educational leadership, again, it was just early on, knowing that I wanted to be in a leadership capacity in a position where I had an opportunity to influence and an opportunity to positively influence, to shape and to lead others. And I've learned throughout my experiences that, again, I mentioned this in the first interview, what has motivated me to move throughout my career has been the opportunity to expand my impact and what I'm able to bring as a leader. In terms of frustrating, probably the most frustrating thing for me, or one of them throughout my career, is that as educators, we have allowed others to control our narrative and to devalue the tremendous work that we do every single day. We need to take that back. I won't even put labels on groups, but as educators, as we've been under attack for the quality of schools and the output and whatever it is, I feel too much we've taken it, and we have a lot to be proud of. And again, this example, currently what we're going through right now in shifting our entire delivery system on a dime, in the learning that's had to take place by all our educators and all the coordination and everything that went into it, it's like nothing that anybody else has ever seen. We have a ton to be proud of. And what frustrates me is that we don't take more control of our narrative and promoting ourselves for the tremendous work that we do and what we're able to achieve. So that is a source of frustration, something that I think that we can certainly address. The most gratifying, I really enjoy the opportunity to, especially I'll use my current role in human resources. Occasionally, and we have many tremendous employees, but someone might take a misstep. And it's not because they're not a good person or not a good employee. They simply made a mistake. And oftentimes it's a pretty significant mistake. And I really find the most gratifying part of my job is, while I have the responsibility to hold these individuals accountable, my greatest enjoyment is to help them put it back together, to put supports in place, and to put them back on a path to where they are effective in what they do, whatever their role is in the organization. In just a short time I've been in HR, again, the most gratifying time when I have what is a very difficult personnel matter, and at the end, a person is thanking me, telling me that I have dramatically impacted their life, maybe personally, potentially saved their career. That's extremely gratifying.
Thank you.
Please describe a typical day of work for you. How do you anticipate this will change if you become our next superintendent?
Typical day. I'm not sure that there is one, and that's probably the best way to describe it. I've described it to new administrators coming in before. If you're familiar with football at all, I say it's a series of 2-minute offenses interrupted by a whole bunch of other 2-minute drills. It's just that a typical day is 6, 8, 10 things going on at one time. It's having the ability to compartmentalize things, to stay organized so that you can move effectively from one event to another, because the person coming in or the person on the phone who needs assistance, typically when they're contacting my office, they need my attention relatively soon. So I need to be able to put what I'm doing currently aside, focus my undivided attention on that individual in that situation, and then be able to pick back up to where I was. But again, I love that. I'd rather be in that environment and going and moving and involved in a lot of things at one time. It keeps me mentally engaged, and I find it extremely exhilarating, to be quite honest with you, and very enjoyable. I'd much rather have those days. I waste more time on the days with less to do than on the days with more to do. How I anticipate that to change as superintendent, I won't insult other superintendents out there, because I feel confident that no one really knows what to expect going into a certain role. They may think they know, but until they've done it. I work extremely close with our current superintendent, and she calls me in. We consult regularly throughout the day. I will tell you what I would expect, quite honestly, is to take my day currently and intensify it a great deal. And so her role is so expansive, and she handles it so gracefully, and she'll be a tremendous mentor, colleague, and friend if given this opportunity. But that's how I would describe what is probably more of an atypical day than a typical day.
Thank you. Next question is, what concerns do you have about this position? And what do you believe would be the greatest potential threat to success?
Well, my greatest concern, quite honestly, and the one that's occupied my thoughts the most, is if I'm not recommended for the position. That would be of great concern. I think on a serious note, while none of this is insurmountable, the concerns, a lot has shifted. This position was posted on February 7th. You fast forward now to May 5th. The landscape has changed significantly. Whether it's, our budget outlook for the state of Michigan is shifted some 180 degrees. We've gone from face-to-face instruction to remote instruction. The bond has moved. So while I answer those to say concerns, I'm not concerned in the least on our ability and under my leadership to effectively deal with any of those. But I would be reckless if those weren't identified concerns and very high priorities from the very, very beginning. In terms of threats to my success, first, quite honestly, I don't think in terms of my success. I think in terms of the district's success. I think in terms of our success. Those are the things that motivate me. That's what will get me up out of bed in the morning. That's the thing that will keep me up late at night and keep me working with folks. I think to the things that I think about the things that I know make my current district great and the things that I understand to make South Lyon great. Anything that would compromise us being community minded, us being relationship oriented, us working in a collaborative manner, us being fiscally responsible and student centered. Those are the things that have put us in the strong position we are, and the strong position that you are in South Lyon. And so I would say that anything that poses a threat to any one of those, either individually or collectively, would be a threat to our success as a district.
Thank you.
This is question 13. Our bond proposal is fast approaching, and you will have to hit the ground running and lead this effort without the benefit of long-term preparation. What will be your strategy to attack this challenge and achieve a successful outcome?
Yes, thank you. I have read all the information available online, whether it's the bond proposals. I viewed the board meetings in which this has been discussed. I have reviewed the individual fact sheets for all the buildings where work is being done. The scope of the work in this bond is very similar to the scope of work in the bond that we did in Livonia. The building additions, the safety and security, the technology infrastructure, the mechanical, electrical, the site improvements. Again, so the scope. This again, I'm not a contractor. I'm not an engineer. I'm not any of those things. But what I have been through in Livonia, having been involved from the very beginning, from starting our long-term planning, through the planning for this bond, through our bond, which was 195 million, through the informational campaign with our staffs and with our community, through to the full implementation, from meeting regularly with our owner's rep, with engineers, with the architects, with our operations people. I honestly think that my involvement in Livonia and what I've been through will help me immensely to be able to hit the ground running in South Lyon. We have a very short window to inform the public. One of the things that we were able to take advantage of in Livonia is we had done some similar work to what we're going to do in the bond in a wing of one of our high schools. We brought parents in, brought the community in rather. We provided an overview of the bond, of its financial impact, of the whole scope of the bond. We put in the information. Then we took them down to what would be an old classroom. And then we talked with them more about highlighting where some of the improvements were going to be. And then we moved down the hallway to a classroom that would look like it would after it was renovated. And in there, you've got large windows with security egress. You've got technology with interactive projectors and document cameras and furniture, flexible furniture that can be moved around from large instruction to small instruction and so forth, depending on what the teachers are doing. Our goal there, and the point I'm trying to get to, is our goal was a lot of our community who's voting hasn't been in our schools in a long time and doesn't understand the need for some or all this work that needs to get done. So we need to make sure that we are informing them. We can't obviously bring folks into our schools now, but through video, we can provide information. Through virtual town halls, we can provide information. That has got to be our biggest push right now, because I do believe, and it's been my experience, the community will support, but they need to understand. They need to understand why, they need to understand what, and they need to understand how we're going to use it. If they have confidence and know what we're going to do, we can garner their support. If they're unsure, they're going to guard the dollars, and I wouldn't blame them. So again, we've got to get the information out. I would work with, again, starting from day one, Barton Mallow and your district team and your facilities plan, and I want to know what has been in place. You had a campaign, you had things ready to go. The only thing that's really shifted is the timeline, and so then we need to look and see, okay, that's what we were going to do for a May election. Now, under these circumstances, what do we need to do, and where do we need to adjust? Where do we need to ramp up to be prepared for an August election? And to tighten that time frame even more, we can introduce absentee ballots. So to realize we've got a lot of work to do, and as I'm sure you have, it needed to start yesterday.
Thank you. Okay, I have your last question. There is no more important and impactful decision for a Board of Education than selecting its next superintendent. If we were to choose you, what is it about your leadership that would cause us to reflect 5 years from now and consider this to have been one of the best decisions we ever made?
Well, I sure hope it doesn't take 5 years. I do hope that that's a realization that you'll warm up to much quicker than that. I do hope, though, reflecting back at any time, whether it is now or years from now when you're off the board, that you will look back and identify selecting me as the superintendent for South Lyon Community Schools, not only as one of the most important decisions you made, but one of the best, and one that you'll be proud to have made. I look at things that you may look back on. I would think of a very smooth and seamless transition. I mentioned it in my 90-day plan, and I believe I mentioned it in my cover letter to you, in that smooth transition. I think that you could expect, based on what I believe and what I understand South Lyon to believe, that I can fully embrace what I understand to be the South Lyon way, and it become a part of that. I think you will expect, or can expect, that I will come in and through my leadership style, through my personality, and through my leadership style, you will find, I hope and expect to be even more than you may think of me now in terms of my experience, the things I've done, and what I bring. I want to be more than you expect of me as a leader. I think most importantly, you'll be able to look back and see, again, as a seamless transition, but that in coming in, I've been able to help join this family to unify our school community behind a very clear, unified vision, and that we have gone to new heights as a district.
Would you like to make any closing remarks? How much time do we have, Mr. Kennedy?
Just under 7 minutes left.
7 minutes for closing remarks.
No, I would. Thank you very much. And I'll think first that, again, my initial interest in this position, and I alluded to this earlier, was based on the district's reputation and my living in the community and the opportunity to have an impact as a leader of this dynamic and prominent school community. Since October, I honestly can't tell you the amount of time and energy that I have spent learning about the district and researching the district. I have binders and notepads, all on my private time, none on work time. But in trying to learn what I could and needed to know to be able to join the South Lyon community and to be able to lead the South Lyon community. It's very important to me that in very short order, I'm not viewed as someone from Livonia Public Schools, but I'm viewed as someone who's a part of South Lyon Community Schools. And I'll get to that very quickly. It's important to be seen as one of this great community and this great school district. Again, everything that I've learned about your priorities, about what you value, about your beliefs, align extremely well with mine, both personally and professionally. And in short, I see that as maximizing our resources to provide a quality learning experience for all students in a positive, healthy learning environment. We're in the people business, and we're about teaching and learning. There is no greater awesome responsibility than the role that we play in educating a child. There just isn't. In closing, the depth and breadth of my experience, I feel, has prepared me extremely well to be your next superintendent and to fill that role in a manner befitting your wonderful district. I have much more to give over the next decade or more as an educational leader. If selected, I will fully embrace this golden opportunity to join the South Lyon Community Schools, where together we will reach new heights as a school community. I have been humbled by the outpour of support and well wishes from friends, colleagues, and members of the South Lyon community. I have been humbled to advance in this process and to continue to have the opportunity to meet with you. Today has been a very long day. I remember now what it was like to be a kid at Christmas because this has just been a very long day, and I'm excited to have had then again this second opportunity to talk with you. I am just again grateful for this opportunity. Would welcome nothing more than the opportunity to join this remarkable district as your superintendent. I thank you sincerely and wholeheartedly for your consideration, and I definitely wish this board all the best of luck in this most important decision. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Archibald, we sincerely appreciate your time and continued interest in being the next superintendent of South Lyon Community Schools. We will continue to keep you appraised throughout the rest of our decision-making process and expect to be prepared to make our final determination on May 18th. Best wishes, and thank you for interviewing with us again. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Stay well. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Nice, Steve.
Thank you.
Good night.
Does anyone need a quick break before we continue?
I can. The next candidate is anticipating that he would start at 7:10, but I can reach out and see if he's ready to go.
Oh, we can wait till 7:10 if that was what he was scheduled. Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll start at 7:10.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks.
All right, great to see you again.
All right, is everyone ready? Okay. Good evening. On behalf of the Board of Education of Southline Community Schools, I would like to welcome Matt Outlaw back for his second round interview. Dr. Outlaw is currently superintendent of the Brandon School District in Ortonville, Michigan. I will take just a moment to describe our format. The interview may take up to 60 minutes. There will be 14 questions. And toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you an opportunity to ask questions of the board and make closing remarks. Although the task of choosing our next superintendent is the responsibility of the board as elected representatives of our school district community, we value the perspective of our stakeholders. We welcome those watching this proceeding to electronically submit any constructive feedback you may wish to share in regard to Dr. Outlaw's candidacy. These comments will be viewed and considered by all members of the board. With that, I will start with the first question.
Great.
Dr. Outlaw, since deciding to become a candidate and participating in first round interviews, what have you observed and or learned about our district that has impressed you most favorably?
Wow, that's a long list. So probably like many of the candidates that were applying for this job, I think they probably began by looking at the district and seeing where the district was at now and looking what the potential was and kind of seeing if they were going to be a fit. And for me, I kind of had a head start on this a little bit. I've been in the area for more than 40 years, and this is a district where I've desired to work for quite some time. This is a position I've been waiting for a long time. So for me, the more I've learned about this district, the more interested I have become in this position. If I had to throw out a couple areas that have really impressed me, one of the things that has really impressed me is number one, that every person that I've talked to, and I have a lot of connections, I have a lot of friends and family that are in the area. Every person that I talk to just talks about the school district with just such pride. And everybody talks about the incredible experience that their kids are having in the school district. So for me, that tells me the story that things are going really well, that people are having a great experience in South Lyon. And that is a big one for me. If I were to go on from there, I love how tight-knit the community is, and I love how tight-knit the school district is. That's another thing that really shined through. One of the things, going back and looking at some of the videos and things like that, I was really impressed at how the board is so respectful of one another, even when you disagree. That's something that anybody who's a board member, a superintendent, knows how special that really is. That really impressed me. And then the other thing I would probably throw out there is that there are so many programs and things that you're doing as a district, from cultures of learning to the habits of mind. There's some really innovative, some really neat things that are being done in the district. And I just think this is a special place. And like I said, the more I learn about this place, the more I want to be part of it. So thank you. And again, thank you so much for having me back to the second round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second, Dr. Outlaw. Forgot to start the clock. Well, just less than an hour. Your second question today. We're a large school district that encompasses 83 square miles and includes 12 schools. How will you be highly visible and maintain consistent interaction with all members of the school community, especially our students and staff members?
So visibility it's something that I've always put as a really high priority for me. Every time, every position that I've been in, visibility has been a high priority. Um, in the district where I'm at right now, what I do is I kind of set rules or norms for what I do on a daily basis, and I have a rule that I visit every school at least one time each week. As I was looking at the South Lyon School District, so it's quite a bit larger than my current school district. And what I was thinking would be appropriate is that my rule would be that I would visit every school at least once every 2 weeks. That might be a visit to the office, it might be a tour of the building, it might be going in for some scheduled classroom visits, whatever it might be, that has to be a high priority. That's the spot where you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on inside of the community, where you have a finger on the pulse of what's going on inside of each one of those schools, where you get a feel for what the student experience is really all about. That to me that's where it starts. After that, it goes into your sporting events, your choir, your band, your drama programs, all of those type of programs, as being present at those, is having the Outlaw family going to all these different events and being part of all that's great about South Lyon. So it needs to be a priority. You have to be out there all the time. And for me, that would be one of the highest priorities that I would have as your superintendent.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Mr. Abate will be next.
Yes, hi there. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. So your next question, describe a successful innovation or significant improvement you are especially proud of implementing in your time as an administrator.
Sure. There's been a lot of different ones. Let me think about one. So I'm gonna focus in on the career technical education area in Brandon. Um, the program had died out a few years back, and it's an area that we really felt would really benefit the students in our community, really benefit our school district as a whole. And so we worked on this and we wanted to get started, but we began knowing that we had to have the right people in place. We couldn't just have anybody leading these programs. We had to have truly dynamic leaders. We had to have teachers that had a passion and that were able to connect with students. That was something that we thought was really important for the district. So we worked really hard at this. We went at several times where we went at this, and ultimately we found a fabulous teacher to take the lead of our building trades program. That program took off and has absolutely exploded in the district. We have students, from honor students that are interested in working with their hands to students that are really interested in doing this for their career. It's been a major success in the district. I'm really proud of the work that the team did on that program. The second part of that is a welding program that will launch in the fall of 2020. Welding is an area, as many of you know, that is there's a huge demand for employees in that area. And we work closely with the Clarkston School District, and we applied for a grant through the state of Michigan, and we received a Marshall grant. And using those Marshall Grant dollars, we were able to secure an outstanding teacher. And she is ready to go. She is going to launch that program in the fall. And we already have about 65 kids that have signed up for that program. And I just think that it's going to be another program that's going to set students up for success after high school. So that's one example.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. Our district spans 3 counties and includes 8 municipalities with multiple police and fire departments. How would you go about establishing relationships and strengthening partnerships between the schools and our numerous local businesses, organizations, services, and jurisdictions?
Absolutely. So, in my first interview, I talked a little bit about how a superintendent is not just a school leader, but it's a community leader. And the way you do this is by making those connections, is by going to the meetings where those people are at, is going and making introductions, is stopping by their office and making sure that those people know you. It's being on the Lions Club with the business leaders. It's being at the Chamber of Commerce events where all those officials are at. It's getting to know one another. So you have to go to where those places are. You have to find out what those places are, and you have to be aggressive in your efforts in this area. For me, like I said, in Brandon, the business leaders, most of the business leaders are either in the Lions Club or in the Masons Club or both. And so I joined the Lions Club, and I have met a ton of people through that, alumni, all the way through people that have kids in our school system today. And I'm also a member of the Rotary Club in Brandon. That's another spot where we've been able to make a lot of connections. And I was on with part of the Chamber of Commerce. That's a spot where I was able to make a great deal of connections. And if you would have a chance to talk to folks in Brandon, they know me well. The elected officials know me well. We partner together. We work together. And as an as a school leader, as a community leader in the South Lyon School District, that would be no different. I would be very aggressive and really work hard to build partnerships with all of those groups. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Competition for public schools in the form of schools of choice, charters, private schools, and online programs is increasing. How, in your opinion, can we remain a district of choice in this competitive marketplace?
So South Lyon's in a unique position that you're continuing to grow. You have, your growth is anywhere from 1.5% to 5% every single year. You're in a spot where you're not declining in enrollment, and that is a real plus for a school district. You have a choice to make, and I know that you have some school of choice in the district. I think it was, when I looked at the data, it was about 120 some odd students that come from other school districts, and there's a handful of students that go to other places as well, but your retention rate is really high. When I think about school of choice, the decision for a school district to be a school of choice district really is about finances. What I mean by that is, if you bring in a student from another community, you get $8,111 for each one of the students that you get. If that student costs $8,112, it's not been a net benefit for your school district. So what I always work on and what I focus on in our district, I talk more about retention versus recruitment. To me, it's about retaining your local citizens. And that to me is the highest priority. That is where the magic happens. If you are open for choice, your retention efforts are also going to recruit, whatever people that you want to bring into that district. But to me, you want to recruit your locals. You want to have a high retention rate. So how do you do that? Number one is you do an outstanding job. Bottom line is, when you do a great job, there isn't a choice to make. They know that they're going to the South Lyon School District. They know they will want to be part of your team. What does that entail? That's things like the personal connection they have with their teachers. It's outstanding communication. It's when the school district does the right things. All of those things connect your community with your schools. And to me, it doesn't become a choice. It becomes an automatic. And to me, that would be the goal that I would have as your superintendent, is to retain and to earn the trust of the people that live here in the South Lyon School District. That would be my top priority.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have your next question. What basic philosophies do you have regarding collective bargaining, and what do you believe the role of the superintendent should be in that process?
Well, this is a great question. This is one that I've had extensive experience on. I've obviously been a district lead at HR for the last 6 years, and I had quite a bit of HR work prior to that with collective bargaining and part of negotiating teams when I was in Grosse Pointe for all those years. To me, collective bargaining isn't about sitting at the table for negotiations. It's something bigger than that. It's about overall labor relations. It's the connection that you have with all of these different parts of the South Lyon team. To me, that is what labor relations, that is what collective bargaining is about. It doesn't start when you go sit down at the table. It's the relationship that you have that is a year-round relationship. So I talked in our last interview about that relationship with the union presidents from the district. And it was built on this mutual trust that we had with each other, this respect that we have for each other, the He looks out for me, I look out for him. Um, we have proactive communication, and we're all in it together. We realize that we're all working towards that same goal. To me, that's what it's all about. When you specifically get to the table, now we're talking collective bargaining here. Collective bargaining is something that I have just a few thoughts and ideas, some things that have worked well in my experience in this area. Um, One of the things that I've done, and it was actually an idea that came from our finance director, and she asked me this question. We would always start negotiating in April and May, and we would haggle over money, and the board wasn't comfortable because we didn't know what the budget was, and we didn't know what our student count was going to be for the fall. So we would just spend this time having some angst back and forth. And she brought up this point, says, why don't we just start talking about finances later in the game? We ended up making the decision that we would not talk about finances until after the first week of school. After the first week of school, we knew approximately what our count was approximately going to be, and we knew what our budget was going to be. So when I talked with the board, we started discussing parameters. We had certainty. The board felt confident. They knew we would balance our budget. They knew that we could put this amount of dollars on the table. So what happens with that is that when I went to the table for the first time with our very first offer, it's very close to where we're going to land. We didn't have to start miles apart because we didn't know where we were going to land. We were able to get very serious. And for the last 4 years in our district, we've been able to come to quick resolutions because of this. We do year-to-year budgets. I think there's real benefits, not budgets. We do year-to-year contracts. I think there's real benefit from the district. I think it protects you financially by doing that. But I also think there's some benefits on the union side of things because boards are more apt to give you better offers when there's certainty about the dollars that they're talking about. So those are some strategies that I have as it relates to collective bargaining. As for the superintendent's role, um, overall labor relations, I think that the superintendent is the lead person. I think the superintendent and board, they set the expectations for how we're going to treat each other and how all of us are going to work together as a team. So I think that's really the superintendent's role. In a smaller district, I'm the lead negotiator. In a district the size of South Lyon, you have an HR director that is going to be your main person at that table. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes, whatever is needed to make sure that those relations between all parties are as strong as possible because the success of this district was really dependent on all of us working together. So those are some thoughts on collective bargaining. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have your next question. There is serious speculation that Michigan school districts could be facing a foundation allowance reduction of $250 to $650 for the coming school year. What approach would you take to decision making in order to account for this extreme financial challenge?
So what would be the approach to determining how to balance the budget? Is that the primary question?
Um, yeah, what approach would you take to decision making in order to account for the extreme financial challenge that we may have, this coming fall?
Absolutely. So I'm sure you're already doing this with your finance director and your superintendent now, but um, I think that right now, I think it's in your best interest to do multiple scenarios when it comes to developing the budget. Last night in our district, we had a board meeting where we talked about 3 different scenarios similar to what you're talking about here. And we talked about the reductions that would need to be made and how we would balance our budget depending on how deep those cuts would be. Um, for for where I'm at right now, we start the planning process very early, and we typically, my finance director and I, we do a lot of the brainstorming as early as November. We usually wait till the audit, and then we start to really talk about the next year, what might be some of the things that we might look at. So I think starting early in that finance process is really important for us. For us, now that the variables have changed so much, we were in a pretty good position to be able to add some reductions and things in order to get us close to being able to balance our budget. So my approach to this would be conversation with the board. It's talking with the board about what the board is comfortable with. It's bringing realistic options with the numbers that are really needed to get to where you need to get to. It's about talking about what the implications are of those reductions, because it's not just about numbers. It's about all the ripple effect of things. There are, if you make a certain reduction, there might be a dollar savings with it, but oftentimes there's this residual effect that you have to account for when you're talking about the budget. So what would my approach be? My approach would be to work with the central office team at Central Off or at South Lyon, work to develop that list of options, that menu of options for the board to consider, and then begin having conversations with the board about what they're comfortable with. What are the things that are automatic? There's some reductions that just make sense, and other ones that are just, they don't make sense for South Lyon. The board is the ones that needs to be part of that conversation. So a lot of conversation. We need to present you the best information possible, and ultimately be committed to balancing that budget. And last night at our board meeting, we walked out of that meeting with a really good position. We really feel like the Brandon School District will be in good position no matter what happens from the state coming next year. So that's a little bit of the approach that I would take. Thank you.
All right. How do we ensure that students, whatever path they may choose, are solidly prepared for success following their graduation from high school?
Would you be able to repeat that? It broke up when you were saying that.
Sorry. How do we ensure that all students, whatever path they may choose, are solidly prepared for success following their graduation from high school?
Absolutely. Great question. So I guess what I would say to this is one student at a time. And I talked about it in our first interview, that I really am a strong believer in that the individual success, the individual pathway of each one of our students. Every student is different. They all have different skill sets and interests. And I think that our job, everything from preschool all the way up through 12th grade, is to help the students to learn about who they are, learn about what their strengths and weaknesses are, learn about what they're interested in, to gain the skills needed in order to get where they ultimately want to go in their career. Um, so, what are some of the things that you're going to do? That involves obviously strong foundational skills. Everybody that leaves the South Lyon School District needs to have a strong foundation. Need to be strong readers, writers. They need to be strong at math and obviously science, reasoning. I'm a social studies guy, so I'm always passionate about social studies. Those core subject areas are so important. They need to have a really good foundation with those fundamentals. But building on top of that, I really think that there's these skills that we talk about. We talk about these 21st century skills that students have to have, and these can be done in the classroom. They can be done through extracurriculars, all these different ways. But these are things like having our students learn how to be creative and having an opportunity to think outside the box and be innovators, having an opportunity to be critical thinkers, having a chance to be able to problem solve, to work as a team to solve real world problems. And that looks different in elementary than it does at middle school and high school, but there's a continuum of those skills. And we need to develop those over the 13, or they start in preschool, the 15, 16 years that they're going to spend in the South Lyon School District. So all of those things together, and helping students define what their passion is, and then giving them the skills necessary, the training necessary, the programming necessary to help them to be prepared to make that step. Going back, that programming part of it is something I think is really important too. They need to have the spots where they can explore those passions, and learn what it is that they want to do so that they're able to navigate their own future. So those are a few ideas about how we can help our students be successful beyond South Lyon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have your next question, Dr. Outlaw. It's a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. If you need it twice, let me know.
Okay.
How do we as a public school district prepare for an uncertain future in the midst of an ongoing pandemic? What contingencies would you put in place to make sure we are as well prepared as possible to provide our students with a high quality educational experience, no matter what challenges face us?
So I've had this conversation extensively over the last month, and I actually met with the leadership team of all the administrators and everybody in the district, and had this exact conversation with our team this week. So I'm going to be able to share some of the things that I talk with our team about. What I want our team to do is I want to plan for 100%. I want our top priority to be what I don't want us to do a halfway plan for the fall. I want us to plan to deliver the highest quality education for every student in the fall. That's where I want our planning to be. I want us to talk about what are the new programs that are in place, what's our professional development going to be, what are our targets going to be for next year, what do we need to do to continue to implement our strategic plan. I don't want our team thinking about online learning, COVID-19. I don't want them thinking about that when it comes to setting the bar of excellence. So I want us to set the bar high for next year, because next year, whether it's online, a hybrid, or back to a traditional school, next year we have to knock it out of the park. We've lost several months of school here where we're plugging the gap the best we can. And I know everybody's doing a great job and working like crazy, but our students are behind. My wife's a Spanish teacher, and she showed me how much content she's missing, some of the things that she's missing in her Spanish classes. And it's a ton. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to have to be made up. So we have no choice but to knock it out of the park in the fall this year. We have to do great. So that's one part of it. On the second side of it is we have to have all kinds of contingency plans. What if? How do we reach that mark? How do we deliver that outstanding product for Southline students if they throw this at us? What if they don't allow us to do this? How do we still deliver that awesome product that our Southline students deserve? How do we do that? So there's no excuse. For me, I want our team to say there's no excuse for us to not have an awesome year next year. No matter what gets thrown our way, we're going to be awesome. But we have to have all kinds of contingencies. And how are we going to do that? Let's plan ahead. This last one, we had a couple weeks to throw something together. We have a whole summer. I've been doing focus groups with our Northwest superintendents. We've been brainstorming what ifs, how might this work, what can we do? We've learned a lot from what we're doing right now about what's working. Our teachers are doing an amazing job, and the ideas that they've been coming up with, there's no reason that next year cannot be an awesome year. So let's prepare, let's plan, let's be prepared for anything, but let's expect next year to be an awesome year. So that's a little bit of my thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have your next question. Why did you choose education and then educational leadership as a profession? And what has been most frustrating and also most gratifying about this experience?
Well, it's been a long time. This is my 24th year in education. And I'll be honest with you, there are two big experiences that really brought me into education. One, I was in 11th grade, and my teacher, Mrs. Howard, my government teacher, I was always a really active kid. I always liked to ask questions. I love school. I mean, I still love school. But she let me lead current events one time, and she let me lead the class discussion, and I got to be the devil's advocate and ask questions. I got a chance to teach, and I'm telling you, it was one of the most exhilarating things I've ever had. I walked out of there feeling so good about myself. I just was like, wow, this is magical. This is really neat, this impact that you can make as a teacher. The second big thing for me is my dad was always a baseball coach, and he asked me when I was about 16 years old to start working with him to be an assistant coach. And coaching really connected with me. I loved coaching. I loved working with teams. I loved pulling teams together. I love being part of that. And I coached for about 11 years, but coaching was the other thing that really brought me into this profession. But what was that driving force? For me in my life, I think my one of my goals in life, and I had an assistant principal that was great at. We spent time talking about what's our life goal, what's our mission, why are we here, and we did a lot of this work, back a few years ago. But we talked about this, and for me, what is my calling? My calling, why am I here on this earth? I'm here on the earth, in my opinion. I'm here. I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in people's lives. That's why I came into education. And I felt that first time that I got a chance to lead a classroom. I felt that as a coach. My first day of teaching at Novi High School, I felt that same thing, and I fell in love with this profession. I absolutely love teaching. 5 years after, I was a teacher for 5 years, and it was amazing. I loved being a high school teacher. I taught social studies, and I also taught Spanish, and it was amazing doing club sponsorship. I coached baseball. And it was a magical time. But I knew I wanted more. I wanted to make a bigger difference, and that's what drew me into administration. So I moved into administration, and each step along the way, I feel like I've been able to make a bigger impact on more people. And there's no position that I've held that I feel like I've been able to make as big of an impact on as many people as being superintendent of schools. Superintendent of schools, you can make a difference in the lives of kids, but not just the kids. You can make a difference in the lives of their entire family if you're doing a great job as a school district. You can make a difference in the lives of your staff. But you can make a difference in the lives of their family as well and the entire community. So that's what drew me into this. As far as the big negative in this, I really haven't found a big negative. I really love this profession. I guess if I had to come up with something, one of my frustrations, I do get frustrated by red tape that comes from outside of the district that gets in the way of high quality teaching and learning. That's one of my pet peeves, but we can work through that. Um, and I think the last question was, what's the favorite? Was it the favorite part? Was that the last part of the question?
Yes, essentially, most gratifying experience.
Most gratifying experience. Honestly, I think it was Mr. Kennedy that was talking last week about that alum that was at the Air Force Academy and was giving the speech and that pride that he felt. For me, my favorite thing is graduation every year. It's breaking my heart not to be at graduation, but for me, I've been in Brandon for 6 years. Those students that would be graduating this year, they were just entering middle school when I came to that district. And I remember when they were really small, and now they're going off into the world. That's a spot I love graduation every year because that's a spot where we celebrate not only the kids, but we celebrate our staff. We celebrate the good work of the community. So graduation, I would say every year is the highlight for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I've got your next question. Please describe a typical day of work for you, and how do you anticipate this will change if you become our next superintendent?
So I think the first thing I would say at a typical day is every day is different. Every day is different. There's different meetings, there's different buildings, there's different spots that you have to go. But I'll just talk in generalities. What do I typically do on a daily basis? I'm usually visit at least one school every single day. To me, that's kind of therapy. Oftentimes, I'll be in a tough meeting with a group of adults, and I need to go and sit in a kindergarten class and just decompress and have my tank refilled. And so I really do pop into the schools a lot. Sometimes I just walk in and talk to the security guard and pop in the office and talk with the staff just to re-energize a little bit and connect with people. But being in the buildings, that's something that's a major priority for me. Sometimes it's being part of superintendent meetings. Sometimes it's being at open schools. Sometimes it's being at the state level, meeting with your legislative officials. There's a lot of meetings where you're working with your administrative team, your central office team. I mentioned business director. She and I talk about 5 or 6 times a day about different topics where she runs ideas by me, I run ideas by. We have a great curriculum director. Same thing. We're bouncing things back and forth with each other. On the phone, talking with principals, talking with parents, answering parent phone calls. Um, those are all things that I do on a daily basis. Typically, I have conversations with board members on my way to work every day. Not every day, but my way to work many days. The board president, she drives in around the same time as me, and we're driving in and we just chit chat and see how things are going. And I give her updates on what's going on in the district. And, John, who's another school board member, we always talk Saturday afternoon and we connect. And, we just those are the type of things that you're doing. So it's connecting, it's being visible, it's moving the district forward, it's planning for the future, it's planning for today. Um, there's just so many things to it. I love the job. I love being superintendent. Coming to South Lyon, I don't see that changing one bit. It's who I am. It's what I did as a high school principal, what I did as an assistant principal, what I did as an athletic director. I'm a high visibility um, person that really likes to be around people. And I would see this only, I would say this on steroids. Especially early on, I would want to be everywhere. I'd want to be in buildings as much as possible. Got a ton of people to meet. I've got 950 staff members. If I were to be hired, I have 950 staff members to meet. I'm going to tell you, it's a priority for me to know all of their names. I know every name of every employee in Brandon. I know where they vacation in the summers. I know who their kids are. That's important to me because that means we're a family. So I would have to just work really hard to make that happen. That would be my top priority. This virtual makes it very challenging, so I'm hoping to have that real human connection. But that's what I would expect to do in South Lyon if I were to be fortunate enough to be hired. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So your next question, what concerns do you have about this position? And what do you believe would be the greatest potential threat to your success?
Well, I think I just mentioned my biggest concern. Um, every position that I've gone to, there's an opportunity when you're the new guy to come in and to bring energy, to roll up your sleeves and work alongside people. And they're curious. They want to know about you. They want to learn about who you are. And 90% of communication is nonverbal. People can feel that energy between people. They can tell if, are you a sincere person? Are you a caring person? Does that person really like me? And a lot of that you can't get through the screen. So I'm really concerned about starting that job. And that would be the same for anybody that's going to do this. The virtual is not going to give you those meaningful relationships. Whenever that can come, that has to happen. So for me, making as many connections as possible is really important. My biggest fear is that it's going to have to be virtual for an extended amount of time. So that would be my biggest concern. As far as biggest threat, I think I would focus on the district as a whole on this. In Brandon, when we did our strategic planning process, and I walked them through this entire process, the final step that we did in our process is with the entire team, with the 52 people that we had on our team, is I had us do an exercise and I called it identifying the barriers to success. And I said, we spent a whole day on it, but we said, what are the things that are going to derail our effort? What is it that's going to stop us from reaching our objective as a school district? And we identified this whole list of things. And then we talked about how we would counteract that. It was things like budget. It was things like enrollment. It was things like laws coming from, from Lansing that might not fit well with what's best for Brandon students. And so it would be the same thing for me. I would be concerned about those external things impacting the great work that's being done in South Lyon. So for me, identifying what some of those threats are, budget, legislation, there's a whole list of things that we could do, staff morale, all these type of things are things that could potentially impact and undermine the success of this school district and what we're doing for students. So I think by identifying those things, by planning for those things, I think you can put yourself in the best position possible to be successful. Also, I think it's really important to be very proactive. So to me, when it comes to budgeting, that's why I start so early. I believe in early planning so that whatever they throw at you, that you're prepared. You have the worst case scenario, you have your best case scenario, your likely scenario. But when you plan way ahead, when something gets thrown at you, you're not surprised. Our board was not nervous at all last night talking about big cuts. Obviously, they don't want to take big cuts, but they're not nervous about it. They said, okay, here's the plan. We have a plan. If we do X, Y, and Z, we're going to be okay. So I think forward planning is really important. And then I think as far as the stuff in Lansing, that's why you really need somebody that knows their way around, knows those legislators, and can call up Representative Crawford and say, hey, this is not going to work for our kids. What can you do for us in Lansing? So I think being really aggressive and being proactive, those things that could negatively impact your South Lyon students, I think those are some of the ways that you can get out in front of that. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next question.
All right, this is question 13 out of 14. Our August bond proposal is fast approaching, and you will have to hit the ground running and lead this effort without the benefit of long-term preparation. What will be your strategy to attack this challenge and achieve a successful outcome?
So I was just part of a bond campaign in March. So I've had some good experience with this, and I've had a chance to work with some strategists and with some marketing folks in order to learn about some of the best practices and things in a bond campaign. But for me, you all have been part of it. Your leadership team has been part of this campaign. You were preparing for May. You're way down the pathway. You've done great work. You've put out so much stuff already. So I think what I would do, my strategy would be to join the team, would to listen to all of you, to talk about what the strategies that you set in order to get the information out to the community, learn from all of you, learn the basics of it, learn the whys on the project. And really, I would probably lean on this board and the administrative team to help get me up to speed on this. And then after that, I would be a warrior for this. I would carry it out and do whatever I could for this. Being new to the community, it would be a real opportunity to use this to get to know people while also selling the future of this school district. And so I think there's a real opportunity there, but I would need to be really have to lean on the board, lean on that administrative team. And there's a lot of strategies that work well. Work with a marketing company on our bond in Brandon, and some of the stuff that they were able to do, the professionalism of our documents and things like that were just fantastic. And then I had a chance to work with a strategist that's an absolutely brilliant man, Steve Mitchell. He's done campaigns all across the country, and he was an advisor to our team. And I learned so much just listening. I was a sponge listening to this brilliant man who's done this for 40 years. So I would hope that I would be able to contribute some ideas to the team as well. But those are some ideas. But whatever it takes, that's what I'm willing to do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I have the last question. There is no more important and impactful decision for a Board of Education than selecting its next superintendent. If we were to choose you, what is it about your leadership that will cause us to reflect 5 years from now and consider this to have been one of the best decisions we ever made?
It's a great question. That is the question. So I guess what I'll do is I guess I'll talk about my vision of when I said at the beginning, where you look at the district where it is today, where you think it can go in the future, and what it takes to get from here to there. Um, so these are some of the things that I think I would use is to judge me, to judge the work of our team. So this is more at the district level. I would say first and foremost that student achievement, student success is just continuing to grow. The district is already doing well, but as you look at all of the variables in this district, you look at the teachers that you have, you look at all of the different pieces of the puzzle that you have as a district. I think this district is going to really take a big leap over the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think that's one of the ways that I would look. I would say, is the district really progressing? That includes student success, our students going on to the next level and getting into the colleges that they want to, getting into the trade programs that they want to. Are they finding success when they're there? When they're getting in their freshman year, are they looking back and saying, wow, the South Lyon School District really prepared me well for whatever this might be? They helped connect me with my future pathway. I think that's another area that I think is really important. I would want you to look back and say, Were we nimble as a school district? And what I mean by nimble as a school district is that did we listen to our families? Did we listen to our students? Did we look at market trends when we're looking at things like our programming? Did we have innovative programs? Did we make adjustments to our programs to be as cutting edge as possible so that we could best serve the kids here in this community? So those are some of the things on the academic side. I would look back 5 years from now and say, no matter what COVID and recessions throws at us, are we financially healthy? Are we financially healthy not just today, but if we set ourselves up to be financially healthy for years into the future so that we can take care of kids for years to come, so we can take care of staff for years to come? So are we financially healthy? Are we still a district that is going to attract and retain the best talent possible in Southeast Michigan? That's huge. That is, if we have great teachers, great things are going to happen for this school district. You have it right now. That has to continue. We have to continue to replenish the teaching staff. We know that there's a teacher shortage across the state. We have to be aggressive with recruiting. We have to do all the little things to attract the best talent to the South Lyon School District and to keep them here in the school district. And then I would probably say as a school district, are we working together as a cohesive team? Are we working as a team striving towards our identified goals that we have in our strategic plan? Are we working together? Are we supporting one another? Are we delivering results for our students? So those are some of the things at the district level. For me specifically, I would want you to say, do people know him? Is he super visible? Do people trust him? Do they feel comfortable with the open door policy that he has? Do teachers look to him and say, he's got our back. He trusts us. He understands what teaching and learning is all about. He understands how difficult it is to be a teacher. Do the administrators look and they say, I really like working for this person, but he's made me better. He's made me a better administrator. He's challenged me to be better. He's supported me along the way, but he's made me better as an administrator. I'm better because you guys hired him as the superintendent. For me, I would want to look back and people to say, you hired not just a leader, you hired somebody who's an ethical person, somebody that's humble and cares about other people in the district. That's something that I would want you to say, those are benchmarks. I would want you to look back and say, yeah, that's what we hired. We hired a good person that was able to be a role model for our students. So those are some of the things there. And I probably would say the last thing for me, and I would want to be judged on this because I'm going to judge myself on this no matter what I'm doing in this profession, is am I an unwavering advocate for all of the students in our district? Absolute unwavering advocate for the students here in South Lyon. If I've done those things, I would say that our team all together, that I think we're doing some good things and we would be heading in the right direction. So those are some thoughts on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to take a few minutes now to provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions you might have for the board. Mr. Kennedy, what is our time?
We have 14 and a half minutes left.
Okay.
So as you look at the next 5 years, and I did this before, what do you say is the biggest challenge facing the South Lyon School District over the next 5 to 10 years?
I'll start with just the budget right now. I think that's our biggest challenge right now. It's my. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go next. I think we need to start to transition to a district that's in a perpetual growth mode. At some point, we are going to plateau. We are going to start to run out of vacant land to develop, and the demographics of our neighborhoods are going to change, and there's going to be less school age kids. So I think we're going to have to go through some of the things that I think you've done in Brandon, which is realize you can't always support what you have. So I think that's going to be a difficult thing. It may not be for 8-10 years from now, but we're going to have to get ready for that.
Yeah, that long range planning is so important. So, absolutely.
Mr. Kennedy?
I agree with Ms. Hanshaw. Our short-term budget going into this fall, number one. Number two, our long-term budget being one of the lowest funded districts in this corner of the state, if not the entire county, always puts a strain on us. So getting over that hump with something more to do outside of that.
Absolutely.
Ms. Hertel? Anyone else?
I'd like to add on, if I could, the CTE programs that we don't have. I think it's going to be imperative that we get up to speed on those programs.
Great.
Sorry, Randy took my statement completely.
Enough, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Do you have any additional questions?
You know what? I probably have about 1,000 questions that I would love to ask you. If I were to move forward and to be the choice, I would love to. Obviously, I want to learn everything that I can about this school district. I Is it okay if I just say a
Yeah.
couple closing things? That
Closing remark, if you would like to make.
absolutely. I just want to thank you so much for having me here tonight and having a chance to meet with you again today. I mentioned before that South Lyon is really a special spot, and I've seen that for a long time. I've wanted to come here for a long time, and for me, this is it's one of those moments in time. It was one of those special opportunities where it's just come together, and I feel like I'm in the right spot at the right time, and it's this position. I know that the budget challenges are there, but I can tell you, having been in a district that has had some significant budget challenges, working as a team with putting our brain power together, working collectively with a long range vision. All these school districts are going to get through this time. And I think that's one thing that's there for me. The one thing that I love about this school district, and again, I'm coming in from the outside, I'm a new guy just connecting, talked about it at the beginning, is the level of satisfaction that the families have in this school district. And to me, that is an indicator that we're making individual personal connections with families, because when people feel connected to their teacher, when they feel connected to their school, great things happen. That's where the magic really happens inside of a school district. That's where those connections really happen. So for me, I mentioned in the last interview that I would want to have a Bill Pearson like tenure in this district. This is the pinnacle of a career. If I were to be hired here, I would be here as long as the board would have me. I will guarantee you that I'm going to put my heart and soul into this position, just like I have every other position I've ever had. But this one right here, I just feel like there's just this special opportunity here. South Lyon to me is on the verge. It's doing so well right now, but it's on the verge of taking a huge step forward and becoming a leader in this entire state. I just would love to be part of this team. I would love to have an opportunity to work and be part of this special community. And ultimately, I just want to thank you so much for having me here today, and I hope to have a chance to talk again in the near future. So thank you again.
Thank you. Dr. Outlaw, we really appreciate your continued interest in the next superintendent of South Lyon Community Schools. We will continue to keep you apprised of throughout the rest of our decision-making process and expect to be prepared to make our final determination on May 18th. Best wishes, and thank you for interviewing with us again.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Bye now.
Right. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay, we will welcome Mr. Silveri back to talk about our next steps.
Okay. So as you know, both tomorrow and Thursday, we have meetings scheduled with stakeholders. I've been receiving questions from the three groups: administrators, staff members, community members, via email. And so I'll have those questions ready to fire away at each of the finalists. It'll be Mr. Archibald tomorrow, Dr. Outlaw on Thursday. And so that'll be the very next step. I'll be encouraging the participants to really, the most critical part of this is going to be to then provide you feedback on that experience. So I'll be strongly encouraging them to follow up and do so through that same link that they've been using to provide feedback post interviews. But I do want to then talk about site visit. That would be the very last step before you make your decision on the 18th. I know it was Ms. Ertel, Mr. Kennedy, and Mr. Schwegler who will be the 3 board members participating. My suggestion is this, having thought about this a little bit, we can't possibly replicate exactly, obviously, what a site visit would be if you were able to do it face to face. But what I am intending to do is to share with the 2 finalists. This is exactly what I would do normally. I would send them an email where I would provide them guidance as to how to structure this, but give them the latitude to personalize it somewhat. So fundamentally, what that means is I would be advising them to provide over a 3 to 4 hour period of time an opportunity for the 3 board members to interact with as many stakeholders as possible and to have as large a cross section as possible, so that just about anybody and everybody who you might desire to speak to, whether that be members of the board, the superintendent, if it's not the superintendent who's the candidate, central administrators, building administrators, staff members, union leaders, possibly even students, etc., to ask them to provide a structured opportunity for that to happen. So my intent is to share that same guidance, but to let them know that obviously they can't possibly be as inclusive as they would normally be in a face-to-face opportunity, but in effect challenge them to do the best they can, let's say roughly within no more than a 3-hour period, to provide as many opportunities as possible for those 3 board members to still have the chance to experience meeting with kind of a cross section of stakeholders, have the opportunity to ask questions, to get some responses from those folks, and be in a position then to be able to provide a written summary of that experience to their fellow board members. I will be able to provide guidance to the 3 members, even in terms of how to go about asking questions. So that'll be a follow-up. But just in terms of that approach to this, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that, and that would be the best way to proceed. Any questions or suggestions?
It seems like that's kind of the only way to proceed. There aren't many other options.
I think you're right, Mr. Kennedy. I do.
What days next week were you thinking?
So my question then to the 3 of you, very honestly, is if you let me know if there are specific days or times of day that do not work for you. I'll make sure to ask the candidates to avoid those, but otherwise I'll ask them to select a day in a time frame, which I would suggest come during what would be considered kind of the normal work day. So maybe a 3-hour period, somewhere from roughly 8 to 4. So again, looking ahead to next week, is there a particular day that wouldn't work, or a particular time frame maybe on one of those days that wouldn't?
Do you want to know right now, or do you want us to email you that information?
If you would like a little bit of time to think about it, consult your calendar, and you would prefer to do that and just shoot me an email, that would be absolutely fine. That seems fair.
The only conflict, well, the almost that we have, Jenny and Dan and I will have a committee meeting on Thursday, the 14th at 4:30. But if we do this early in the day, um, if we could, you think it would possibly get them both done in one day?
If that's your preference, I certainly think it's possible, and if you would prefer that, that's what I would follow up and seek to structure.
I might, but I could be flexible with Dan and Jenny's schedule, what their thoughts are.
I'm fairly open all day the 13th and 14th.
Okay, those are the 2 best days for you, Jenny?
Yep.
Okay.
The 13th, I can be wide open. The 14th, I can probably move my morning meeting if need be.
Okay. So it looks like the best days are going to be 13th and 14th. We have to avoid the 4:30 meeting on the 14th, and for Mr. Schwegler, maybe better to avoid the morning on the 14th if possible.
Yeah, but I can probably move it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Then I'll communicate with the candidates. We'll get that set up, get things going. I'll confirm with you via email with the entire board so that you all know. And we can talk a little bit more about the details of that as well at that time. Okay, so appreciate that. Any questions that you have about that? And that would then be the last step. And you would obviously at that point look at considering any and all of the information you have at your disposal. And I would encourage that you reflect back on everything and really be as deliberate as you can in order to make the best decision possible for South Lyons schools, which of course I'm sure you'll do.
One question for the site visit. Is it going to be similar to the interviews where we have set questions, or is it more of a free flow conversation of question back and forth, which might lead to a different question or another question?
Great question. More of a free flow. I'll provide you with a little bit of guidance, but really you're going to be free to ask the questions that you would like to, and let that go where it may.
Will the candidate be present for it, or is this just the people that they're asking to be part of their stakeholder grouping as part of this?
It's another great question. The candidate will not be present. It will strictly be the stakeholders that they're making available to you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear on the stuff that's coming up. So the stakeholder meetings that are happening the next couple days, those are all for either staff members or public or the groups, and none of us will have any piece of it. And the only thing we get out of it is the feedback that they provide, which you will then get to us, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the stakeholder meetings, if those happen via Google Meet, our IT guys said that they could record it like we do these sessions, and that would give us the ability to watch it then.
And it is our intent to get the details squared away early enough to be able to give your tech guys the information they need with enough advance notice that they can set this up and have the opportunity to record as desired.
Okay, and then we have all of that, and then process easy, decision hard.
I
Yeah.
have a clarification. Are we as a board, are we going to be able to view the staff and the administrator meetings?
The stakeholder meetings tomorrow?
Yeah.
My understanding was that you were not, and again, what we're talking about doing is replicating as closely as we can what we would normally do. And normally, in order for those folks to feel free to ask any question that they might want to, sometimes the presence of board members or others can be a little bit intimidating, even if you're not intimidating individuals, it's the position you hold. And so given that in that circumstance, we would ask specifically board members not to be present. We're looking to replicate that for these meetings as well.
Okay. But the site visit, we will be able to watch.
The site visit's a horse of a different color, and actually it's a little bit advantageous now because the only way to share the experience with the typical site visit is for the 3 board members who participate to create a written summary of the experience afterward. In this case, because it's virtual and we're able to record it, which I think was a great suggestion. And why not? It gives the opportunity then for those other 4 board members to see it and experience it for themselves. And then you all have the same information at your disposal as you're facing this huge decision.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. At this point, I know that we weren't supposed to, and I'm guessing none of us have actually contacted any of the references that were listed, and I'm pretty sure you did. If there are any specific things that we kind of want to learn more about from their resumes that these references can speak to, are we now allowed, or maybe 1 or 2 of us allowed to kind of reach out to some of those directly?
I would encourage to do one of 2 things. If those of you who are not participating in the virtual site visit have some suggestions, lingering questions, and you'd find it helpful that your colleagues ask, and Mr. Schwegler, in your case, obviously you're participating, that would be an opportunity to do so. If you wanted to make sure that we hit the right people and didn't leave it to chance that they might be part of the site visit, I would request that you share those questions with me, and I would go ahead and on your behalf ask those questions. What I will be doing too, another piece of data that you'll have at your disposal is I'm still reaching out and trying to contact even more of the references. And as I do, prior to you making your decision, probably sometime later next week, I'll be providing you with a summary of what I heard from the references on both of the candidates, where I won't be saying specifically, this person said this or that. I won't be identifying the references by name, but I will be generalizing that, generally speaking, here are the types of things that I heard on both of the candidates from the various references I spoke to, very honestly, including any concerns that might arise.
Great.
Any additional questions on our process?
The
Great
only other thing I'll say is thank you again, John. You've been great through all of this, and appreciate all the help with you.
It's very honestly, you've all been great to work with too, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, with that, our next item is public comment. I do have two. The first one is, both of them asked that I just read them. The first one is Mr. Kurt Newman, and he says, with COVID-19 forcing a stay-at-home order, schools have been forced to continue via web meeting. South Lyon is an urban rural community, and we're not set up to do this. Most school districts across the county were prepared, including neighboring communities. What will you do to make sure this does not happen again? I'm assuming that that is intended to be a question for the community forum. I will ask John to propose that question during the community forums.
Can you forward that question to me, please, along with the name of the individual?
Yes, I will do that. And
Please.
the next comment, I think, is the same. The next comment is from Samantha Letvin, and she says, during the interviews, it has been mentioned by all candidates that they have crafted 90-day plans for the board to review. Would it be possible to make these available to the public for us to review prior to the community meetings? Thank you. I guess we can talk about that either now, or we can talk about it offline and then we can respond to her at that point. Okay, so we'll respond to that later. I just want to, those were our only two public comments at this time. I do want to remind the community that the form to give feedback for the candidates is on our agenda. It's at the top of the agenda, and we will continue to look forward to community comments on our candidates. Okay, with that.
Can I ask President Hanshaw, I'm sorry, for tomorrow's stakeholder meetings, I know you have that link at the top of your board agenda. Where will participants tomorrow be able to access that link?
Chester or Jeff, do either of you have an answer for that right now?
If not, it's as long as we have an answer for that by tomorrow, where I can provide that guidance, and whether it's just, if it'll be somewhere on your website, perhaps, where they can access it. But however that may be, it'll be important that I'm able to guide them appropriately.
Okay, we will handle that. We'll get you that information for tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, with that, if there's no more comments, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Kennedy, supported by Mr. Dashner. Mr. Latte, please call the roll.
I vote yes. Ms. Hanshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Dashner,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Swegler,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ertel.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Night, everybody.
Right.